this chapter, we're going to cover some overall strategies to this. There are going to be two instructor videos you need to view for this particular module. This and another one called Writing Up the Report, where I go into specifics on writing these things up. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so when you go and write up an action research report, you always have to follow a style guide. For for education, we follow APA, which is American Psychological Association. One of the books that you bought, or maybe you didn't buy it, at the beginning of the semester was APA the Easy Way. Now, what this does is it gives you a particular strategy, because it lists the way you're supposed to go and quote things, the way you set your references up, etc. So make sure that you follow this. The conventions of academic style writing. Okay, when you look for when you go and put your case study together, look to make sure that you are following these conventions. You know, in the way that you use language. There's not informality in a case study that you're going to be writing up. Slang does not occur unless it is part of a quote that you are using from an interview that you've conducted. Okay, you need to really kind of the strength of your study is not necessarily in the cleverness of the language, but it needs to be in the professionalism and the focus of the language. So you've literally got to just grab your reader's attention. Okay, person and voice, written as objectively as possible. Now, whenever you do this, I call this the I disease. Please don't do an I. I did this, I did that. I teach this way, I conduct that particular assessment. You don't want that, okay? You want this to be a detached observation and analysis of a particular research setting. So, just watch out for that, okay? Active voice, more appropriate than passive voice. If you need to look at anything more up on that as far as conventions of writing go, be sure to reference that, okay? Tense, it's typically written in past tense because you've already conducted the study. This has already happened. You're reporting on what occurred. Don't write it in the present tense. Okay? Now, description of current situation or problem. You could do that if need be. Let's say you had a particular research problem that you were that is systemic, or that occurs from one school to another to another. That part's okay to write in present tense, but as far as the way your study happened, let's stay away from that. Okay? Tentative versus definitive statements. Okay? When you state definitively, you're talking about, these are the methods that you use. These were the results you got. This was the sample you chose. The tentative conclusions, because remember, this goes to the heart of what qualitative research is about. It's time and context bound. So when you write this, you're talking about this from the perspective of the setting that you researched. But tentatively, okay, the conclusions and the implications, as you know them now, this is what they are. Okay? Okay, clarity. Please be sure that your language is clear, that it is focused. As you go through and begin to write this up, I would definitely go the route of an outline. Don't just start typing on a keyboard. You won't have the focus that you need, and it just won't turn out well, and you'll have to redo so much of it, it just won't be worth it. Okay? Consistency. Be consistent. Now, if you have acronyms that you're going to use, make sure that you state what they are, that you give a definition. And we talk about that, earlier as well with operational definitions as they seem to be relevant. Okay? The simplicity of the language. This is a big one because when people go to write an action research report, a case study, many times what they do is they want to go and capture 2 or 3 sentences worth of analysis or experience within 1 or 2 words. You don't want to do that. Write straight to the point. An old advisor of mine used to tell me whenever I would write, I wanted to make sure I covered everything, and so I would write like this. I would just go around and around. Okay? That is hard to follow. You need to write straight to the point. As you write straight to the point, you are also narrating what is happening around. You like the little special effects there, but write straight to the point. Okay? Avoid the overuse of adjectives and adverbs. Keep your message short and simple, to the point. Don't waste time. Okay? Conventions of format. These, and we talked about this, or I'm sorry, I will talk about this also in the next video. This is about the format of what this paper will take. This is also in your syllabus, so be sure to look at that. It tells you exactly which sections you will have to be making sure to include. There's also a rubric that is there that shows you how I will be evaluating it, both in the rough draft and final draft stages. So be sure to pay close attention to that. The length of the entire report will differ. In this class, it is a set number of pages. So look in the syllabus. It tells you just exactly what you need to do. Follow that. And I also cover this in the Watch Me First video at the beginning of this particular module. Okay, so practical guidelines for writing. You're master's students, so I'm going to advise you as you go and do this research report, as well as your culminating research project. These are good practices to have. Establish a writing routine. If it is 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes a day, you'd be amazed at how quickly you will progress through your project. Set that time aside. Don't try to do anything 11th hour. It obscures the quality, the potential quality of your work, and it creates a lot of stress that you just don't need. That's in terms of the action research project. In terms of the culminating project, 11th hour just doesn't work. But we'll talk more about that later. Okay? These are just some strategies for you to think about. You know, I would structure this so that you go into it with a clear mission. You know what you're going to say. You have the data that you have analyzed, that you have gathered, readily accessible, so you know what you need at the different parts that you need it, so you won't go and repetitively use something in a way that you should not. So this is really it. We'll talk more about this later as you get further in. You know, the rough draft is just that. It's a rough draft, but there are still expectations that are held for it. So again, be sure to look at the rubric that I will be using, the different parts to the rough draft. Make sure you label each section, and watch the next video where I will also address this a little bit more. All right, that's it for this one.